Chapter 5 Heart of Darkness. An excerpt from History, Before the Alicornian Reign, by Charles Huffington. Thus ariseth the subject of the changelings. Now the ponies of old are conspicuously silent on this matter. Be it clear that their design was to blot the name out of the histories, though in spite of their pains to efface such knowledge, I have heard the echo of the unspoken, and seen the strokes of the unwritten. Before even the flags of this country were planted in the ground, there existed a mare whose likeness was without match, so that it was called the incarnation of beauty. So great was her unparalleled splendor among the three tribes, so incredible was the enticing sight of her, that even mares swooned at her presence. But though her body was as lovely as the stars, what lay inside her was more appalling than even the guise of discord. Deceit was her beloved sister, and betrayal her dear friend. When she saw something that she desired, she lured its owner with words that dripped from her lips like honey, and they followed her without question into her snares. Then, when her lover had entrusted everything they owned to her, she stole everything they had, and silently slew them in a dark place. With such beauty and such horrible lawlessness, nothing was out of her reach. But though she was never compelled to answer for her transgressions, there would come a righteous judge that would sentence her without fail. Time, that old and inevitable foe of the sinners. The seductress foreknew he would come for her, and before even her sentence of death was pronounced, she would be made to suffer the penance of old age. Her beauty, and with it her power and wealth, would be forever lost to her, never to return. The thought plagued her justly, and without pause. This one realization, that the days of reckoning were approaching, drove her to the greatest extremes. She would do anything to maintain her beauty for all time. So she chose from among the tribes a unicorn who had possibly the greatest ability in his race's birthright. She made use of his voluminous library, and from her studies arose the faint glimmer of an escape for herself. With her sweet words and her beautiful body, she persuaded him to forsake the law and unveil to himself as well as to her the blasphemous and dark magics which had been hidden long ago. She had in mind to ascend above the tribes and take hold of the exalted form of an alicorn, the immortal race of peerless and wondrous majesty. With the power of the wizard and the dark magic, she received her mind's craving. But as with all dark magic, there was a price. Rather than achieving unwithering beauty, she was granted only the base features of the race of brilliance. Her head was adorned with a long and terrible horn, with which she could tame nature itself, but it was twisted and deformed. She was graced with wings with which she could master the boundless sky, but they resembled those of the despicable fly. As her heart was, so became her likeness, dark, ugly, and hollow. All of her desires not being met, she flew into a rage and slew the wizard. Though after her fury had been doused, she discovered that she had not completely failed in her endeavor. She found that she could take for herself any likeness that she desired. Such an ability allowed for her skill in seduction to be strengthened beyond imagination, for she could tailor her form precisely to please her lovers. Yet there was an ever more suitable ability that had been given to her. While once she considered her lovers themselves worthless, coveting only their possessions, they then became sustenance and even indulgence for her, she being able to fashion the power of their love and emotion into a feast. Therefore her gain for playing a lover was twofold, slowly bleeding them dry of energy in the form of love, which of course caused death, and stealing all that they had thereafter. However, this love that she took was a double-edged blade, being as much a need as it was a pleasure. To satisfy the new need, she fabricated new servants, so that they might go out and collect love as she did. They pledged their unending loyalty to their mistress, and demonstrated it even in death. She had created the perfect work ponies, but in doing this, she took from them all individuality. Not one remained true to themselves, but rather they all were blindly in one accord. Like their mistress, they had lost the power to love one another, and were only able to find duty in its place. Therefore, they abducted existing couples, and preyed on them as does the manticore on the gazelle. And, as time passed by, more were added to her numbers each day. Yet, despite all that she had gained from the dark covenant, she had not thwarted time. Hence, before the judge came at last, she had in mind to leave a legacy, one who would continue on the path that she had begun to pave. It was then she conceived a child. In time, that child would also bear an heir. So on the lineage of the changeling queens continued, and continueth to this very day. Ere the first hearth-swarming eve, the changelings preyed easily on the ponies. However, after the 3 tribes of ponies came together and founded Equestria, the skill and deeds of the parasites were made known to them, and, with the aid of the magic of the unicorns, they were able to identify and impede their enemies among them. Then, as one people, they drove the multitude of their adversaries out of their lands. After a short few years, the newly founded Equestria had vanquished the changeling threat, and having lost their source of life, the changelings were forced to seek out other places where they could survive.